as you guys know, the Republican House caucus is threatening to use the debt ceiling that we have already actually technically hit in order to extract some kind of spending cuts. Our friend Jeff Stein over the Washington Post has been looking at ways that the Biden administration might deal with this particular situation that would not require them negotiating with the Republican House caucus. Let's go ahead and put Jeff's tweet up on the screen before we bring him in. So he wrote a piece about the 7 different quote-unquote gimmicks for dodging the debt limit. Listed here, they are: number 1, mint the coin; number 2, declare laws unconstitutional; number 3, sell federal assets; number 4, buy discounted bonds; number 5, 14th Amendment; number 6, console bonds with no maturity date; and number 7, Fed remittances. And Jeff joins us now to break all of these various things down for us. Great to see you, sir.
Good to see you, man.
Thanks so much for having me back on, guys.
Yeah, always our pleasure. So I guess let's just go through these. First of all, top line it, do you think it is realistic to expect that Joe Biden would use any of these tricks, and maybe start with the one that you think is the most sort of plausible among them?
I think there's basically no chance he does any of these ahead of a crisis. I think the White House sees political upside as really, to continue to just sort of, they feel like they sort of have the Republicans in a hold, and they can just keep hitting them over and over again with this message. You guys are trying to destroy the economy to cut Social Security and Medicare, which is true for many of the Republicans. It's an accurate line in many respects. So they feel, and I think for others more substantive reasons, they feel like they can't really go down any of these routes now. But if we hit a situation where the debt limit, as you mentioned, we've hit the debt limit, but we're in this weird limbo purgatory period where the Treasury's extraordinary measures are keeping us afloat by shuffling money around in the federal government. Once we get beyond that and markets start to freak out, and if there's still no chance of a deal, then I think these options are going to come back, especially because some of them are, we can get into this, some of them are more or less dramatic. Obviously, the coin being the most fun one to discuss and to think about them actually doing.
So, Jeff, all of this presumes they're actually not going to negotiate and we are going to default. That just seems extraordinarily unlikely. I know that Speaker McCarthy is actually meeting with President Biden, I believe, on Wednesday to begin hashing this out. Everybody says they're not going to negotiate. Clearly, somebody's going to negotiate. What do you think the odds of even getting to an actual default actually are?
It's one of these hard things as a reporter where you're like, I want to convey to people that there is a real danger here, like that I don't see how a deal gets done. And that's why we're covering the story. That, right. It really seems hard for me to envision, because if I saw the path for this, it would be kind of a non-story. At the same time, to your point, like McCarthy and most of the Republicans and the president and the Democrats in the Senate, everyone understands that they cannot default on the debt. And so it's this like awkward position as a reporter where you're at risk of crying wolf and feeling like you're like running around screaming, hey, like this is a huge thing that we all need to be worried about. And I feel like I've seen this already, which I totally sympathize with, where some readers are saying, every time this comes up, you guys are running around shrieking like this is a big deal, and then nothing ever happens. But the fact that it hasn't happened so far doesn't mean that it won't, right?
Of course.
And
yeah.
The reason that I'm more nervous now than I have been in any of our other previous debt fights, and we can discuss this, at length, but if you look at all the pieces on the chessboard, none of them seem to point towards a resolution here. I just don't see how any of the major actors here has an incentive to do what would be required to reach an agreement. I don't think the White House could or maybe should offer substantive concessions on cutting major domestic programs after winning, expanding their Senate majority. Republicans have this incredibly thin margin in the House that they barely squeaked by. And the idea that Biden should give in to Republican threats to blow up the economy to cut, major programs that people rely on, the White House sees that as rewarding hostage taking, and it's hard to sort of discount that opinion. Similarly, I just don't see McCarthy, I could be wrong, but I don't see him giving up his speakership for the sake of getting this done and protecting, the nation's creditworthiness. And then similarly, I just don't see House conservatives telling McCarthy, reach some sort of pro forma deal that doesn't have any meaningful cuts or teeth, and we'll go along with it. Do you guys see Gates or Lauren Boebert going for something that is kind of obviously a fake win for the right? So, and Trump obviously is in the background, like yelling at the Republicans to, be tough and stand strong. So I don't really know where this goes, which is why I think we're looking at the unilateral options again. But these options are really not that good. I mean, the coin would be really, really fun to cover and really exciting to watch happen. And we could debate who would be on it and everything. But I just don't see it happening for reasons that we can discuss. But the primary one is that if we did one of these so-called gimmicks, Republicans would immediately denounce the subsequent Treasury auction of debt as illegal. And then investors would demand a substantial risk premium on purchasing U.S. government debt. And we could drive up our borrowing costs by hundreds of billions of dollars, which is a real dramatic downside to going down any of these routes. And even if you believe in their legality, you have to contend with the Supreme Court and Republicans mucking it up after the administration tries it.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, this is what was sort of revealed in the exchange that you had with two of the individuals who have really been sort of thought leaders, I guess, behind the mint the coin idea, which is basically like, okay, so what happens if, the scenario you just discussed unfolds, where basically the markets are demanding a risk premium on this debt, or potentially the Treasury doesn't accept it, or it goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's like, no, we're not buying this. What do you do? And they were basically like, ignore the Supreme Court, send the military to the Fed, and force them to accept the coin. And when you look at that, you're like, yeah, there's no way Joe Biden is going to ultimately do that. And that, sounds like that's a lot for the American people to take, too. Like, you're going to ignore the Supreme Court and you're sending troops to the Fed. That's just a lot going on there. So do all of these ideas basically suffer from that same flaw? Because another one that I'd seen floated, I guess, most commonly is the idea that you effectively have two laws that are in conflict. Congress has already appropriated this money and said, we are spending it. Here are the things that we're doing. And at the same time, they're saying, but you can't, borrow what it takes to spend the money that we already said to spend. So you have two things that are just in direct conflict. So in that situation, you could have the president just say, listen, I'm getting conflicting instructions from the Congress. So the way the government is going to execute this is we're going to decide to follow what they said in terms of the appropriations process. Does that still then ultimately suffer from some of the same flaws as the other ideas here?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, my sources in the administration think that second route, the one that you identified about just saying these laws are in conflict, we have to pick one, let's do the one that doesn't destroy the global economy. That one seems much more palatable to them. I think, these are early discussions happening at the White House, but if we get to a point where this is still months away, unfortunately, I guess fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want to think about it, but from a reporter's perspective, it's unfortunate we're going to have to be covering this for months and months. I think that path seems much more politically feasible. I think the coin strikes people in the White House as kind of ostentatiously out of the box, sort of so beyond people's expectations. It's kind of easy to make fun of and grab hold of, and sort of doesn't have that sort of technical legal veneer. I mean, the coin advocates that you referenced to would say, and I think not unreasonably, that at the core, these different ideas are not that dissimilar. You're trying to say that the spending powers, that the debt limit that Congress has approved is in some way not a valid law, and we need to find a workaround. The coin is obviously a more colorful one, but they would say, even if you were to go down the route of ignoring the Supreme Court, that is a usurpation of executive, or that usurpation of judicial authority and congressional authority, where the executive is stepping in and asserting its unilateral power. The troops going to the Fed is obviously a very colorful illustration of what that looks like, but that's really, when you're deciding to overturn Marbury and Madison and get rid of the process of judicial review, you are kind of asserting that you will use the military force of the White House and the executive over the other branches of government. I just think it's really hard to see the White House ignoring the Supreme Court. I mean, putting aside the substantive question, this is not the kind of White House that wants to be seen as wildly out of step with American political norms. And right. Even if you think that it's totally justified by the law and the circumstances, it's just impossible to see them, Biden, the guy who was in the Senate for 40 years, going for something like that.
Yep, I think you are absolutely spot on with that. And to be clear, I think you're doing the right thing. I think the odds of default, well, I mean, the odds of default in 2011 were high. The odds of default today are high. Whether we actually get out of it or not, who knows? And you should continue going. Don't listen to people saying that you're playing it up or not, just because the consequences of it are so high.
Yeah.
And continue to do your job. Thank you so much, Jeff. That's why we have you on. We appreciate you.
Always great to see you, Jeff.
Good to be bucked up on here. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. We got great shows for everybody this week. A little programming note. Thursday, the show, we're going to be coming in remotely, or we're going to be in Austin, Texas. We're going to have fun times while we're down there. You can go ahead and guess what we're doing. It's called The Live Show. That's what it is. It's on Friday. We're going to have a great show for everybody who is in attendance. Just programming note there. We will still have Tuesday show. Counterpoints will still premiere on Wednesday. We still have a show for everybody on Thursday. So don't worry about it. We're always working very hard for all of you. Thanks so much to our premium subscribers. We really appreciate you, especially with all this stuff going on with our business right now with expansion. You're going to hear much more about it. We will see you all tomorrow.
Love you guys. See you tomorrow. Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.